Ranch Boss here. What I'm going to do is share a little of the history of the ranch with you guys. This ranch was part of Mexico in 1830, and that's when this property was deeded to a family from Missouri. This was part of a larger ranch at that time. It was 4,400 acres, and Mexico was trying to populate a wilderness, and they were advertising all over the world, free land in Texas, come to Texas. And you literally had people from all over the world coming here to claim their stake. And if you had a family, you got 4,400 acres just for showing up. But the only thing that the government of Mexico was not telling people is that you might have to kill a few Indians and you might have to fight a few Mexican banditos to keep your land. But when someone in the early 1800s traveled across the world, there was no trip going home. It was do or die. And the family that was given this piece of property, it was deeded to them in 1830, part of a 4,400 acre piece at the time. And when they got here, Texas and Mexico were on the outs. Santa Anna was mad. He had come to this county, or had sent word that he wanted his cannon back that he had given the settlers to defend themselves against the Indians. And it was government tyranny, and it's existed all through mankind, and that's what that was about. It was tyranny. It was confiscation of weapon. In this case, one weapon. They wanted to confiscate it, and the purpose was Mexico was getting ready to come down on the settlers and wipe them out because the settlers were tired of the tyranny. But let me not get off on that tangent. Kind of parallels some of the things we're facing in our own country today. But let me continue on with my story. So the family comes out here. They get here in 1832. And they were able to settle on the piece of property. It was a husband, a wife, and 5 kids, and they had 2 slaves that they brought along. And there were lions out here, mountain lion. There were bears here in Texas at the time. It was a very dangerous place. Not to mention the banditos, the Indians. Everything wanted to kill you when you wandered off into the woods. They lost one of the slaves. He went out to shoot a deer, bring some food home for the family in a little log cabin that they had built. He never made it back. They went off into the woods a few days later. All they found were a few tattered pieces of clothes and never found any remains other than a few blood spots on the ground. But a few years later, Santa Anna is out to kill all the settlers. We are here in the historic town of Gonzales, and here comes Santa Anna. Word reached the settlers about 10 o'clock in April of 1836, March of 1836, and word came to them that Santa Anna was on a rampage. He was just several hours up the road, and the families left their dinner table 10 p.m. at night and headed east towards the Sabine River, Louisiana, which was the start of the United States, running for their lives. And at that particular time, there had been a lot of rain, a lot of flooding in the major rivers, and these families, in pure desperation, dove into these rivers with their wagons and the few things they were carrying, and so many of them were swept away in a raging river, never even made it. But for those that made it, it was a 6-week trek on foot, running for their lives day and night. San Jacinto, 1836, April 21. Santa Anna and General Sam Houston meet up. The battle lasted all of 17 minutes, and a new nation was born, the nation of Texas. But anyway, during the next 10 years, those families were so traumatized from about 1836 to 1846. It took about 10 years for the families to start trickling back to these properties out here in Gonzales County. So for the next, since about 1846, there's been people living continuously on this ranch. They lived, they worked, and they died here. And several of them are buried here in our graveyard. And the last person, these are all unmarked graves. The county came out here and actually found 25 buried bodies out here, and these are early Texas settlers. These are markers, just marking unknown graves like this. Later on, these modern day bricks were put around here, but when I came here years ago, these bricks were all under the ground. We actually had to dig them up. They were in about a foot of dirt. And the county came out here, and if you ever want to know the story, come visit me at the ranch. It's an amazing story, how without even getting out a shovel, the county came out here. They could tell you where the bodies were, and this is not through records. This is through another means that I won't go into detail on this video. And they found a total of 25 bodies out here. And they put these markers here about a decade ago, marking male and female. And this is all that we have left of the original settlers. When I came out here about a decade ago, there was one marker that was, none of these were here obviously, like I just said, but this stone here was above the ground. And I came over here and I looked at it, didn't know what it was, went and got a shovel, started poking around, and actually dug this out of the ground. And this is the only known record of the person that we know of who died here, who they were, and all of that. And this is a guy, his name was Nash Perry. He was born December 11th, 1872, and he died July 11th, 1902. And his epitaph says, "Friends and strangers, pass me by. You are now, as once was I. I am now, soon you must be. Prepare for death and follow me." And I put this in the paper that we had found Nash Perry, and his family had been looking for him for 100 years. He lived and worked here on this ranch. He was 29 years old when he died. He got an abscessed tooth, and that's what killed him. So the wife loaded the 5 kids up on a wagon and traveled east and lived there until she died a few years later. 4 of the kids were sent to live with family in the northern part of the country. The youngest child stayed here with relatives, and it's his ancestors that had been looking for him for 100 years. Nobody knew where Grandpa was buried, and we were able to identify this, and the family came out here, had a big family reunion, very grateful. So this is where old Nash Perry is buried. So this is just a little quick story about the graveyard on the ranch, and I will put up some more videos about some paranormal activity that's gone on in this area. We put up a butcher shop over here. I'm going to see if I can see the red roof from here. You cannot, but when we built that building, paranormal activity continued for at least 6 months after we finished that building. So hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll be putting up more on this topic.